Hello, you're listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And by Neil.
Hello.
Do we need this?
Someone's asked. I asked someone on the internet, on Twitter, if they've got any questions for us, and someone just went, "Why do you still bother?"
Yeah, I saw that.
Sailing.
So,
yeah.
You got a lot of questions on it.
One word answers. Why do we still bother?
Routine.
Friendship.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm happy with that, yeah. Yeah, I like talking to you two.
We're alright, aren't we?
Yeah, it's alright, isn't it?
Right, I'm going to go with deluded.
That might be our three personalities in a nutshell there, ladies and gentlemen. Dare we try some moments of the week? Paul, I'm going to point to you first.
My moment of the week, and I'm going to be really contrary, which you know is my favourite thing in the whole world. As you two know, and regular listeners to our weekly chatterings know, I love a good stat. One of the stats I never really quite buy is possession stat. And when Murray comes out after the game and goes, "I've looked at the stats, and possession-wise, it's like passing the ball between the back three or into the midfield. You can do that for 85, 86 minutes. If the opposition scored 2 goals with 2 Route 1 balls, it doesn't matter the fact that Kean Harris has played 80 passes to Jordan Willis. It doesn't matter. Possession stats don't matter. Because while it's great that you've got the ball, the most important thing is goals. And teams play us and they go, Coventry play lovely football, so we're going to watch them play lovely football in that part of the pitch which doesn't hurt us. And we play lovely football in the part of the pitch that doesn't hurt anyone. So we're going to have more possession than the opposition because they don't care. So can we stop with this? And while I'm myth busting, we weren't on top until the red card against Bradford. At that point, Bradford were on top.
Oh, yeah,
that's why we gave away the red card.
That was ages ago. Why are we talking about this?
Because Mowbray, after the game, in his post-match interview, went, "Well, we were on top against Bradford until the red card." We weren't.
That's relevant, isn't it? Why is he bringing that up for?
But it's a complete myth that's peddled by the press as well. It's like, you read it in the press, like, we were on top against Bradford until the red card. We weren't. Even the Coventry Telegraph's own highlights show that before the penalty, they missed 3 sitters and then the penalty. It's like Bradford were on top. We can't get this into our heads that we played really well against Bradford until we had 10 men. We played really well against Bradford for 30 minutes.
No, not even that. No. I can test that. We played well against Bradford until we scored, which I think was like 17 minutes.
Even then, we've played whatever you... My argument is we played 30 minutes of really good football this season. Joey's we played 17 minutes. We didn't play an hour, and I think it's just... We're second bottom because this season we've been shit so far. Yeah. Let's not hark about something that didn't occur.
But it's that whole sort of, they won't remember sort of thing. It's they just say anything, thinking, it doesn't matter. Like, people were at that match. You guys obviously saw it. He comes out and says it, but the majority of people, because we weren't there, it kind of gets away with it. It really winds me up. And that possession thing, yeah, I completely agree. The one that I don't get is like when you get like 48 to 52, and people say, we edge possession. What would be more interesting is if it was like 50-50. That's like, it's so difficult to get 50-50 possession. So why people read into it either way, like 2 or 3%, I don't know.
I think a 10% margin on that is where you've got a meaningful statistic. I think you need to be over 55% before you can say that you've had more possession. Otherwise, you've just had roughly the same amount of possession.
A couple more passes, or the ball was, in the keeper's arms for a few more seconds. It's just nonsense.
And I think we'll come on to this more as I talk about Fleetwood later. Possession, as far as I'm concerned, is the most redundant fucking statistic, unless there is weight behind it, but I'll come on to that in a bit. And admittedly, it's a well-trod road for me, but I'll bore people with it again. I'll try and keep it brief. Neil, your moment of the week, if there is one.
Transfer deadline day. The excitement. The joy. Waiting up to 11 o'clock to get Andre right. Yeah, that was...
What are you complaining about? He's big, strong and powerful.
As are every single one of our... Yeah. Look at that lineup now. We could just batter ramp everybody, can't we? Yeah.
People call him the Dan Agyoi of the Premier League.
Oh, what a moniker.
Yeah, I'm with you. I found that tortuous. I was actually on the way on a train back from London where I've been working and was drinking, obviously. And so Twitter amused me that night. But outside of that, it was just desperate, wasn't it? It became very apparent, like days before, that this talk of more players coming in. And as well, can we box this off just quickly before we carry on? People that have talked about... So Kieran Crowley came on here last season at the end of it that talked about our transfer targets and whatever. And the club had talked reasonably big about having targets. But that people subsequently, because they've not signed the players that we've expected to, have been like, oh, they're lying? I don't think they're lying whatsoever. I think there were big intentions to sign decent players. I don't think it's lies. I think
it's gone tits up, hasn't it?
It's gone tits up. Yeah. There's a massive difference between it would be in no one's best interests to say, oh, we're going to try and sign players of the calibre of Leon Clark and then not do it. You don't win anything through that. If you raise people's expectations like that, the only thing that you can do is see it through or fucking it not happen and blow up in your face. But the idea that these people are lying, I think is a little bit fucking annoying to me.
Okay, when are we going to do our transfer deadline chat? We're going to do it after or before the Northampton game?
Oh, do we have to?
We do, because I find it really interesting. Okay, I want to get your opinion on a couple of things.
Well, I've just got my fucking bees out of my bonnet, if that's even a sentence. My moment of the week was... I'm going to go for like match the day 2 style, too good, too bad. I thought that Jamie Sterry's off the line header. Have you seen the highlights from Saturday?
Yeah.
I thought he had to cover a phenomenal amount of ground, and he had to see that a lot sooner than everyone else did. He saw it as soon as Reece Charles-Cook was off the line to get back into that position. He was comfortably back in that position. And I think, yeah, I know what you're huffing about. But... God bless him, I thought that was a particularly astute bit of play. Not that I thought he had a particularly astonishing game, but that when he was back on the line, he was comfortably back in the right position. I thought that was good.
Go on, Tony.
The flip... Oh, yeah, shit, I've already lost my thing of calling him Jerry Sterry.
Oh, no,
yeah,
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, I know, he's now... Yeah, that's. I'll make sure that carries on. The flip side of that is anything that Marvin Sordal did throughout the entire 90 minutes... And I include in that the incredibly weak loss of possession in midfield for their second goal.
It was a foul, Joey. He rolled on the floor with his arm up towards the ref, going, that's a foul, ref.
Just wasn't at all. There wasn't a foul. Then there was, I think, worse was the one shot that he had in the second half that I can still see just so vividly in my own head. It was like... a five-a-side player. It was like a bad five-a-side player. The ball had bounced up and he hit it on the half volley. And it was like, it wasn't like he was going to score, but just looking at it, you just thought, you played for the Great Britain team. Like you were playing in the Premier League at some point. There's no way you were playing in the Premier League at some point and not got found out.
Well, he did get found out. That's why he's now playing for us in League One.
Crucially, yeah, but you're surprised at it. And again, he's still subject to the, non-ramage clause 10-game rule, but it's looking hairy, Marvin. Okay, right. I'd suggest that what we do is we have 5 minutes on Northampton, 5 minutes on the transfer deadline day, and then 5 minutes on Fleetwood, and then we'll see where we go from there. Paul, give us a little bit of a Northampton rundown.
Oh, I can't remember if it was on here or somewhere else that I heard that apparently Sir Alex Ferguson said that no matter what happens, fans only remember the last 15 minutes of any game. So as long as you do something good in the last 15 minutes, it doesn't really matter. And some of the post-match analysis of the Northampton game I've seen and read seems to be really much in that sort of in that field, because for the first 45 minutes against Northampton, we were probably second best, and Northampton took the lead and probably deserved it. And they took the lead through Gadjev giving the ball away really softly when he was like outside the Cobbler's penalty area. And it's like, that's fine, but we only have two midfielders. So if one of them's giving the ball away really lazily, it means the other one has to do some remarkable work to get it back. McCann didn't do some remarkable work. McCann basically stood there and watched the opposition player skin him in what can only be described as one of the limpest attempts to win a ball I've seen for a long time. And then they crossed the ball in and they scored. And you were like, these two in central midfield really aren't doing anything. In fact, they're pretty poor. And I said to my mate at half time, I'm really a bit disappointed by McCann. I thought, as we discussed after the Bradford game, I thought he was going to be really good. And the first half against Northampton were running circles around both him and Gadjev. But luckily, Northampton don't like losing. And luckily, they had a 1-0 lead to protect. So Northampton decided for the second half they weren't going to bother attacking. That's so passé. They thought they would just sit there and wait to see what we could do. And with the front three of Agai, Sordell and Tudgai, it wasn't an awful fat lot. It was pretty poor. And then, luckily, Agai got injured and Mowbray had to do something. And he looked at his bench and went, I played 3 lumbering fools up front, but I seem to have 2 quick wingers on my bench. What shall I do? I'll bring on one of the quick players. And just Jones, I think we all agree, has massive potential. How far he can go, I don't think any of us know. My big question mark is end product. When you watch Sordell, Tudgai and Agai for 60 minutes, you realise that end product doesn't have to be that good. It doesn't have to be that big. It just has to be something. Luckily, Jones put in a magnificent ball from the right-hand side, which I'm sure everyone's seen the gif of, where he skins his man with a lovely step over and puts in a great in-swinging cross.
Someone's made a gif of that?
I think so, yeah. I think England were at 19s or something.
Yeah, they're keen, aren't they?
Have you seen it back?
I saw the replay. I didn't realise someone would have gone to the measures of creating a GIF of it.
I mean, it's not the Ryan Kent pointless bit of skill.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, it actually contributed to it. I thought it was pretty good.
Oh, it was good, sure, yeah.
But I mean, anyone's making GIFs these days, aren't they? It's like podcasts. Any arsehole can put one out.
Any old idiot.
But my concern wasn't the magnificentness of the cross. My concern was, out of the strikers we got at the club, which we have many, the only person I imagined heading that ball into the back of the net was 34-year-old Marcus Tudgai. And that does concern me. Because I didn't see him fighting Sordell out of the way to score that. It was a case of, yay, look at me, I'm the striker. Oh, shit, I'm 34 and really shouldn't be playing first-team football anymore.
Very quickly, if I can jump in, did anyone see the stat about when the last time we'd scored a headed goal from open play was?
The last game of the season before last.
2014, wasn't it, yeah?
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So what counts as so open play, just cross?
Yeah, so no corner, no free kick.
Right. Yeah, it was Marcus Tudgai against Crawley.
Yeah, which I think it's an interesting stat, but I think is one that if you were playing devil's advocate, you'd say, well, we're not a team that. I mean, we had Adam Armstrong up front on his own.
Did we?
We weren't whacking crosses into the box. But there's more than one way to skin a cat, isn't there, I suppose? And potentially that would suggest you're a little bit one-dimensional, but who knows?
Well, Thierry Henry got 180 Premier League goals, and I think one of them was a header, and that's about his 173rd or something.
Well, this is the second time that I'll go for the let's do more on this later. I would suggest that the less that we can compare ourselves to a Premier League team, the better we'd be.
You mean when Tony Mowbray comes out and goes, Pep Guardiola plays passing football, and that works for him everywhere.
Yeah.
I've got one issue with this, one issue alone. Well, many issues with this. My main issue is, he went into the Man City squad, he looked at all of his strikers and went, okay, I look at you, Wilfred Boney, and I think, Stoke.
Yeah.
He didn't go out and sign another 2 Wilfred Boneys and then play all 3 of them up front. That's all I'm saying. It's like, he didn't go for the big and powerful, he went for talented footballers.
Have you watched, I know that this is completely off topic, have you seen much of Nolito?
No, not really.
Yeah. I thought he was a funny signing because I'd seen a little bit of him, and then I've seen him linking up with David Silva, and I've gone, okay. And that's the thing where you're like, if you're a possession football team, you sign someone who's good and that links up with everyone and who's talented enough to do it, even if they are odd, and you go, oh, okay, rather than more to be continued.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's just I look at our squad. And I said this in a tweet at the weekend. I look at our squad, and for me, you always have a player with creativity in your team. So, in our squad at the moment, that means you either play Kyle Reid, and you go for the scattergun approach. And it's amazing, he's dropped off the face of the earth recently. You've got Jones, or you've got Ruben Ramirez. And one of those 3 should always be on the pitch. Because one of those 3 can create chances for the blundering idiots who are stood alongside them. I don't expect Swordell to create chances for other players. It's not really what you buy Swordell for.
No.
Okay, yeah, there's a question, why do you buy Swordell at all? That's fine. But it's a bit like that with our guy, even I would have thought with Andre Wright. I haven't seen him, but I'm assuming he's not the Dennis Bergkamp type player. He's the goal scorer. So you need someone who's going to create a chance. We're playing two kids from Premier League clubs who haven't played that many games as being our wingers. So you're expecting where the creativity to come from? And it's just, why is he not playing Ruben Ramirez or Kyle Reid? And when you're chasing a game, surely they're the players you bring on, the players who can unlock the door, and all the other crap metaphors about creative players. It's just like, and goes on. I'm going to neatly segue into the transfer window. It's like you look at it, and someone made a really interesting point on Twitter about the players we've signed, the players we haven't signed. The players we wanted from other League One clubs, your Kyle Reid, your Marvin Swordell, they were signed quite early on. There was no issue. The players we went for who were experienced, and apparently Murray came out and said experienced players won't come here. You're going, well, is the problem you're looking for experienced players who you deem good enough to be better than what we had? Unfortunately, better than what we had is probably championship level. So the players you're going for are championship level players. They're going to end up more often than not at championship clubs, which is why Ben Turner ended up at Burton, why Wilson ended up at Rotherham, because we are competing with championship clubs, and it's difficult to get those players because, why would you drop down a division?
How did it turn around so quickly? Well, last season we picked up anybody we wanted. A couple of months later, now we can't pick up anybody.
But did we though? I mean, if you look at the sign,
we did. We picked up any. I don't reckon there was anybody there. Ended up getting Ben Turner out of nowhere, inexplicably picking up Joe Cole. Adam Armstrong shouldn't really be coming to us. Murphy's clearly too good for League One. All these players turning up at our club, who were apparently the pick of the bunch from the Prem, we did pick them up.
And demonstrably, I felt like they were. So even Ryan Kent, who I'd got problems with, it was knocked spots off a lot of the players that I've seen so far.
Yeah,
but like they were basically we're saying the same. You look at what people are saying about Danny Aggai and Andre Wright. But he's basically Adam Armstrong. The only reason he proved to be too good for League One
he's better
because he basically proved he was too good for League One. No one knew. No one could guarantee that Murphy was going to be as good as he was. We didn't know that. I don't think anyone knew that. The difference is this season is we've gambled on. Let's face it, we've signed a player from the Premier League in Turnbull. We have gone out and spent money. Now, there are major questions like, where is some of the money from Maddison gone? Why not invest £500,000 into the squad? But they are talking about bringing in free signings, so that there's obviously still money within that budget. My question is, it seems to have been really oddly spent. Like, we don't need 11 attacking players for 3 positions. We just don't. We didn't need Andre Wright. Because why do we need that? We don't need that another striker, that other unproven striker.
We need a better striker.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you could have gone out and signed Dexter Blackstock, is it? Who went to Rotherham today?
Neil, I want to chuck a question at you at this point. So I think we get accused of being sort of either sympathetic towards Sisu and blah, 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 blah. And it annoys me at times. I feel like we try and be as sort of balanced and realistic. And I think that, especially when it comes to finances, I think in the past we've been quite lenient on the idea of how much it costs to run a club and what that means and everything. When you look at our dealings in the transfer market this summer, do you think that's shifted a bit? And do you think, because I do, I'm looking at it now and thinking, I'm not sure I'm having this totally anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the key is more the players that have gone out, rather than the players that have gone in almost. So we've picked up people, obviously not the ones they wanted, but it's things like the sale of Vince a lot, and Fleck doesn't really count because he was always on his way. But all these players who did so well for us last season, who were part of this team that was bustling with confidence, we're having to sell them. We're letting them go. We're not picking them. We're not signing them again. Now people are saying that's like part of a plan, and it kind of Tony Mowbray knows what he's doing. But you can't tell me that he would have looked at that team last year and thought, well, we came so close. I want to completely dismantle it and start again. If he did want to do that, then I think that's utter lunacy. But I don't think he did. So I think that's my biggest issue, is that he's kind of... His hands have been tied in the sense he's had to get rid of people. So he's left with this make-do approach where he just has to fill gaps, and he has to get as many players as possible to somehow stumble across a meaningful 11, which I think that's all we've got now. I don't think there's any sort of semblance of a plan there at all, or any sort of method behind what's going on. The whole last-minute signing of Thingy from West Brom, he kind of... That wasn't... He didn't want that. He didn't want him. I'm sure he didn't want him. He thought, I need a player, so we got one in.
I think Fleck is a good, worthwhile comparison, because whilst he wasn't a player that we bought, he was, if not the top earner at the club, certainly one of them, and that's still money that needs to go around. And there's part of me that wants to play devil's advocate and said, we could sign some amazing player at the free agent market. I just don't see it happening. And I think there is a point where, even as rational and devil's advocate as you try and be, increasingly it feels like now you're like, I'm not sure I fucking buy it anymore. I'm not sure that this thing of, it's this and it's this, it does increasingly feel like, where are we going?
Yeah.
Because I think that the players are out there. Last season they were out there. But
last season, Moby got everything afforded to him. People say, it was just normal sort of signings. No, they weren't. Last season, we were picking up anybody we wanted, and he was afforded every single opportunity in the transfer market. I know a lot of them were loans, but we created a stunning football team last season, and then they ballsed it up. And that's an aside almost. He was given every single opportunity to create the team that he wanted to, and it was great. It was brilliant. It was a top class team. This season is different. This isn't a unit. This isn't him. Nobody in their right mind would go out and say, I want him. I want to put those all together as a unit. This is what I want for my team this season. It just doesn't make any sense. Like Paul's already hinted at the imbalance in the squad. That tells me straight away that he's not happy with the quality, and he just keeps going out and trying to find another person to replace the other one that he's just brought in, and you end up with a bunch of players rather than a meaningful sort of group of players who actually fit into a system.
But also, just throwing it out there, I mean, you look at the team that he's picking at the moment. He wasn't going to bring in another keeper than Reece Charles Cook. So Reece Charles Cook was going to stay and was going to play. Two of his back three, you would have thought Jordan Willis was already earmarked for one of the three centre-back positions. And obviously he went out and spent money on Turnbull. So you've got to imagine that he was quite high up on his one list. So that's two of the back three players that he probably would pick if he had the other options out there. Obviously, he wouldn't pick Keane Harris, and he's already said he wouldn't pick Sam Ricketts. So there is, desperate need for a third and probably an experienced centre back, which we know he's tried to get in Wilson and in Ben Turner, but we don't know where else he went. Obviously, Gadjef he signed towards end of last season. So you would have thought that he was on his you listen to everyone who talks about Gadjef. He was brilliant. He's the best player, far better than John Fleck. So you would have thought Gadjef was already earmarked for one of the central midfield positions. Chris McGann, again, I would have thought that that's where the John Fleck wages have gone. You would have thought they've gone to Chris McCann because, again, the player that we heard rumours about being wanted from a championship club.
That's possibly
so
fair, yeah.
Possibly he's... as I said, he bought in Sordell very, very early on, so you would have thought. And again, I spoke to me and Kieran Carroll had a very quick one on Ye Olde Twitter, and he said that they saw Sordell as just like a wide one in the front three. So again, you would have thought Sordell was one of his, one of the players he went for, a bit like Carl Reid. You would have thought he was a player they went for, and then you add that to the base squad of people like Ruben Lameres, Jody Jones. So there are quite a few. I'm not saying for 1 second he's got all the players he wants and it's the team he wants.
But it's so different. So different to what worked for us last season. Suddenly we've got this team which... Where are the quick players? Where are the ones that... Last season, what worked for us? It was dynamic, quick players, fast balls forward, players who could run at the... Jim O'Brien, Murphy, Armstrong, Kent, all these really dynamic players. None of that this year. He hasn't picked up any. He's gone for a completely different approach.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we put that down to the fact those players aren't there, or do we just go down to the fact that Mowbray's just decided to have a complete... Because let's face it, he's changed the tactics completely. I mean, the 3-4-3 or 3-5-2 is completely different from playing 4-2-3-1. Yeah, so do we put it down to Mowbray? No denying that Sisu have hindered the football club for years and have hindered this transfer window. But if you look at how we're playing at the moment, there's also got to be some pressure, or there's got to be some questions asked of what Mowbray's done with the budget he's had, because as I said, the squad is just completely imbalanced. I mean, I know McCann went off on Saturday. If he's injured long term, then we're down to having 3 centre midfielders. One of them Stevenson. So, you wouldn't have 3 centre midfielders and 11 strikers, because you've got Kwame Thomas, he's 5th choice centre forward. Why bring him in at all if he's going to be 5th choice centre forward? And he was brought in quite early. What was the point of that?
Can I jump in a second? So, Paul, you posted something today or yesterday that I thought was fascinating, which was the respective records of Mowbray and Pressley after 72 games.
72 games, yeah.
Can you relay what the win-draw-loss ratio was?
I was going to bring this in later, but you've preempted me, you bastard.
Feels relevant.
Yeah.
And there's a point to make after it, which I'll make, but I'll try and do it briefly. And I'll try and fill here while you're looking through your phone for it.
Can't I just sing instead? All right. After 72 games, Mowbray, 125, drawn 22, lost 25. Presley, 126, drawn 21, lost 25.
Fucking hell.
So
that's
it's literally
style, isn't it?
One and a draw in it.
It's League One, this is. League One, and we're losing as many as we win.
The point that I wanted to make about the two is that there are shocking result parallels between the two, I would suggest as well. And that you've got Pressley in his first full season after coming in, and then we stayed up, and then he's got his proper full season. He has, almost unbeknownst to him, I would suggest, and I might be doing him a massive disservice, he's got Callum Wilson waiting in the wings. And he's also got Baker and Musa, who all of a sudden, and probably down to him, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, or let's say whatever, we had a period within which we had an attacking front four who were just banging goals in, almost irrespective of anything else that was going on around them. So we were a force, but almost one that seemed to defy any level of plan, if that makes sense.
No, I understand, yeah.
Yeah, you could have. There's very little that you could have done to expect that Callum Wilson would have gone on and been the player that he ended up being, and that sort of, that rose us right up. That next season, he decided to play. We've had people come on here and tell us as much. He'd saw the World Cup in 2014 and decided that in the 14-15 season he wanted to play 3 at the back, and he had high ideals that were almost contra to what had been successful while he was there. Fast forward a season, you have somebody that has to take over from a failed back 3 that keeps us up, and then has Adam Armstrong come in as an 18-year-old from Newcastle. And the absolute archetype of all of this for me, the absolute pinnacle, is the Gillingham game. When you think about that Gillingham game, how much fast, fancy passing do you remember? How much possession football do you remember seeing? I remember quick, incisive counter-attacks with powerful, pacey players that were just cutthroat. We didn't pass our way through to those goals and to that success. They were penetrative, brutal players that hit quick on the counter-attack. And again, you found yourself in this situation where at the start of the season, he's saying we were a passing team last season, when we were good last season. I don't think we were a passing team. I'll be happy to be hoisted on this by anyone who disagrees. I just don't think we were. But curiously, he's tried to bring in players of a sort of pacey, ilk to those that we've had before, albeit not as good. But he's trying to play a system of football that doesn't match what they're there to do. It's just, it's insane to me. And I think he seems to be... We're going to get crucified after today because you're not allowed to say anything bad against him. And whilst we're not saying, to put it on record, that he needs to get the sack tomorrow, I do think there are significant questions to ask over his tactical acumen over the last few weeks. It's not working, and it's demonstrably not working within games, and other teams have consistently managed to switch things up, and we haven't.
He's forcing it, isn't he? He's trying to force something. Prezi had the same issue. Trying to force this formation, this ideology that this is going to work for me. But I always have in my mind that 3 at the back feels specialised, and you can't force that. You've either got the players for it or you haven't, and you may think you've got the players for it, but we were second from bottom, 5 games in, barely played well all season.
2 league goals.
Exactly. Yep. I mean, is that working?
No.
Let's put it also into context. Bristol Rovers have got 4 points. They've played 4 games. They've got more points than us, and they've played 2 less games than us, or 2 fewer games to be good English.
How have they managed that? Why have they played so few games?
They've only played 1 less.
No, they played 2 less. They played 4.
We played 5.
I thought we played 6 now.
No, 5.
You sure?
I'm looking at the table as we speak.
So am I. We've played 6. We've drawn 3, lost 3.
Yeah. Stupid table, make me look like an idiot.
And so Stu put on Twitter, how long do we give Mowbray, and who could be a possible replacement? And I just questioned, are we at this point already? And after an interchange, I went, well, how much is it down to him, and how much is it down to the constraints on him? Now, the 3-4-3 formation and the imbalanced squad, I think, are down to him. He knows his budget, and he's the one who's gone out and signed Kwame Thomas when he could have signed another centre-half. But also, the lack of quality and the lack of depth of quality, because our under-23s got fucking mullered today 7-2 against Charlton's under-23s. And it's like, the reason that's sort of relevant is because that's our backup set. They're not like 5 injuries away from the first team. In some instances, they're like 1 injury away from the first team.
Less than that. Dion Kelly-Evans and Ben Stevenson played.
Yeah, so Haynes played as well. So that's 3 players who played quite a few. So the lack of depth and the lack of quality has to be down to the fact that Sisu obviously haven't given him the funds. There's no denying the fact that with more funds, barring Sheffield United, who are showing that funds don't mean fuck all in football, without the funds, he's obviously hamstrung. But how much is he doing it himself? I mean, Joey, you're one of the 3 of us who thankfully went to Fleetwood on Saturday. How much of our issues or inadequacies against Fleetwood were not due to the players, but due to the quality of the players, but down to the system in which the players were thrown together in?
Firstly, thank you very much for what is a career peak link of yours.
Celebrating like I haven't seen Cov score for years.
I mean, it was fantastic. I think it takes many a factor to contribute to a fuck-up of that magnitude. And the formation was at the forefront, but it couldn't have been executed without the incredibly poor efforts of pretty much everybody on the pitch. It was... Paul, I don't know whether you've spoken to Jimbo, oft mentioned on this parish.
No, I thought I'd bet I'm going to leave him stew for 2 weeks.
We got into half-time and it was poor, really, really badly poor. But that we'd had a nice day and that we'd got there pretty early and we'd had some drinks and everything. And we sort of, sheer goodwill got us through the first half. But that I can't remember as silent a second half throughout the entire crowd as that Fleetwood game. Bear in mind they're 3rd in the league. Have you seen that?
Are they?
Yeah, they're 3rd, Fleetwood are. They were atrocious. They were absolutely horrible.
That makes me feel so good.
They'd got no game plan. They'd got no anything. They were them teams last season that came to the Rico that we dismantled 3-0, where you were just like, I don't know what the fucking point of them was. Like, was it Shrewsbury that came? And you were just like, what the fuck are you doing? There's no way you could come here and play like that. You don't even know whether you're trying to defend for the entire game. They were like that.
Right.
When I got told after the game that they were 3rd, I nearly vomited. I just couldn't get my head round it. They were futile. And we were somehow maybe 4 or 5 shades worse than that, especially in the second half. It's, honest to God, without hyperbole, it's one of the worst second halves, one of the worst halves of Cov football that I've maybe ever seen. It was absolutely diabolical.
This is bollocks, isn't it? It really is. We're like riddled with incompetency throughout the entire club. And what gets me the most is that people don't seem to care, and that's not like I mean I don't mean that as literally as it sounds.
No. I know what you mean.
People kind of, I care, you care, you know. We care in the sense where when we lose, it embarrasses us. And on the pitch, I'm sure the footballers care. But what people don't seem to care about is being in League One. That has become the norm now. People being in this league is fine. We're going up against teams. I'm just going to throw some names out, Northampton and stuff like that. And like getting a draw against them is fine. That isn't fine. I'm living in a completely different world at the moment, and League One is not good enough for this football club. And I keep saying it. And after what happened last year, when we should have gone up. The idea that we can that was it. That was our like fun season for the next 10 years is just absolutely galling. It's just it needs to matter.
Go on, Paul.
I agree with Neil wholeheartedly because the phoning after the Northampton game, it was like I know we talked about the fact there were 26 games unbeaten, but people were like using that stat to sort of come to some conclusion that it was a good result, and you're like, no, we've just played Northampton at home, and we've come from behind to equalise. And with someone taking that away as a reason to be happy, we should be absolutely and the reason we should be absolutely fuming is for 45 minutes we were second best against Northampton. We were shit against Northampton, and it's not. And this is what sort of bugs me about the people who ring up and go, "Oh, Mowbray's a great manager." And it's like, no, the whole club is failing at the moment. There is not one part. Last season, Caesar were awful owners. Mowbray was succeeding. We were top of the table. But that was down to Mowbray. Mowbray alone. Mowbray and Venus and the signings they made, as we discussed, Armstrong, Murphy and Kent and getting the best out of Jim O'Brien and those sort of things. And then bringing in Ben Turner. That wasn't down to Ceci. That was down to Mowbray. The issue this season is I can't imagine the budget's changed that much. But this season, the loan signings, from what we've seen so far, aren't working. They're not of the same quality.
Without wanting to sound like fucking... Go on.
Sorry, go on. Well, last season we didn't waste loan signings on a right back and a left back. It just seems like we got our own right back and left back. Just play them. Use your loan signings to bring in that star quality that you can't. A, you can't afford because you're in League One, and B, you might not have because you're in League One. Don't bring in a run-of-the-mill left back and a run-of-the-mill right back. You can pick them up from anywhere. We could have kept Aaron Phillips, who'd been a run-of-the-mill right back. You know, this guy's going to have to be fucking Cafu or Christian or Bale to really sort of stand out in League One. It's like, wow, we won that game because our right back's fucking brilliant. It's like, it's a nothing position in terms of why you get loan signings. You get loan signings to be special, to be that standout player. When you play the opposition, they're like, shit, that kid's good. Oh, he's come from Man United's youths, or he's come from Liverpool, or he's from Newcastle, or he's whatever. Not, oh yeah, left back was all right, wasn't he? Oh, fuck, it's just a waste of time. It's just pointless. It just shows where we're at as a club, that we're sort of excited by that as a signing. We've wasted one of ours. You know, you play a computer game, you get the star cards. We've wasted one of our star cards on Lewis Page.
I don't think there's much value in being "I told you so" because it just makes you look like fucking Johnny Big Podcast. But we consistently said last season, this squad needs to go up because I think you're going to really struggle to replicate getting these players back in. This might be an odd fluke that, like you say, Neil, is that they might be. You don't know that Armstrong's that good. It's a punt. But you've got to do something with it. Or you've got to be clever enough that you can replicate it through some extensive scouting network or whatever it is. But that it's not working now, is it? And that you look at it and all of them misgivings that we had when we started to fuck up and all them worries is everything is falling in on itself at the moment. And that outside of some... The only things that I can see happening are... that there is some way that those players are learning that system, which there's a lovely devil's advocate, adorable, happy-clappy bit of me would love to think is the case. But if I'm totally honest with myself, I don't see it. I don't see that it's an adjustment period, that all of a sudden the penny's going to drop and they're going to be like, oh, actually, I get it now, and start spanking teams. Because I don't think that's the problem. I actually do think they understand how to play that system. The problems are more fundamental. There's no cutting edge, there's no confidence up front, and there's no one that's got that absolute death killer instinct that Adam Armstrong had got. And Jacob Murphy had got at times. Jacob Murphy scored 10 goals last season, don't forget. And most of them were fucking outers from like fucking either outside the area or where he's like murdering some fullback and driving inside. And I don't see that killer instinct in that team. I also don't see the strength and the determination in that midfield. And I really like the look of Ben Stevenson. I think that's going to be a smashing player potentially, but there's a huge difference between the number of potential smashing midfielders that we've seen, Biggie included, who's now back, and Roman Vincelow, where there was no idea of he's going to be a brilliant player in a few years. You were like, he's a brilliant player now. He's a player that's fucking killing in this league and has been for a long time, and he's murdering midfields. He's running midfields.
And we're giving them up.
We're just lobbing them away like it's fucking nothing.
Yeah. And it was for nothing, wasn't it? What did we gain off that?
We got a 21-year-old centre-back that we'd already got.
Exactly. It makes... And that, to me, that can't be Mowbray. As a football man, he can't look at it and say, this is good business for me. It just doesn't work. Vince Lott, the best midfielder we've had, that midfielder we've all been calling for. We've been doing this podcast for how long? 4 years? Every year we talk about that midfielder. And last year we got him. We were virtually we were crying over him because he was so good. We were like, we've got Vince Lott. And we get him for one season and he's gone. And it's that direction, or lack of it. Nobody said at the beginning of the season what we were aiming for. Nobody said after we fucked it up last year, right, okay, that was disgraceful. We're gonna make it right this year. And why is that? That's because they know they haven't got the tools, or they just haven't got the wherewithal to actually do it. It's like they're scared to actually go for it. And that's from the top as well. That's Mr. Anderson, this guy who is coming, and he's not a leader. He doesn't do anything. He didn't come in, didn't say anything. He doesn't give you a sense that the club's going anywhere. He's just there. I don't even know what his credentials for being at the club are, to be honest.
Well, we can ask him when he's on next week. That's a joke.
Yeah.
Well, you've blown that guest appearance.
I do feel sorry for Clive Eakin when people ring up the radio and like, you haven't asked him the questions. It's like, I can't. We keep asking him to come on. But you haven't asked him the questions. You don't ask the. It's like, I'd love to ask David Davis a load of shit about Brexit. He's not going to come on this podcast and answer them. It's like, you've got to accept the fact that CWR, yeah, they do have obviously they have their feelings, and I'm sure they think the club badly run. It's like Stuart and Clive. But they're not going to go out on the radio and go, yeah, we think they're a bunch of cretins or arseholes, because they want to try and get these people in for an interview. And it's like shouting at Clive might make you feel better, but it's not actually going to make any difference, because it's down to Chris Anderson to actually go on the radio and answer those questions. They
you know
can't
what I reckon
force
they should
him.
go on?
Go on, who?
Go on.
Harky.
Who?
Parkinson. It would hit him off.
Parkinson?
My Brent reference has just gone. Sorry, carry on. That's too niche. That's twice now I've sounded like an idiot.
Parkinson?
Go on, Joey, tell us more about the game, or just don't.
Well, I wanted to revise my moment of the week, although I'm desperate to know, but I feel like we'll have to do this afterwards. I wanted to revise my moment of the week on the very subject that you're talking about, is I would like to switch it to a tweet that I saw from James Rodger of the Telegraph, who said, signing off on transfer deadline day, he said, been good tweeting tonight and sorting it out. Just a reminder to everyone, though, I have very little to do with transfers going in.
Yeah, I remember that. That was brilliant.
Some people are lunatics. If you're tweeting, it's the same people that are tweeting Chris Anderson saying, any news on transfers? Like he's sat in a restaurant going, oh, fuck, I know I meant to tweet something. Yeah, we've signed Messi. Yeah, oh, guys, sorry. Yeah. We've actually signed 6 players. I've just been busy. What do you think people are doing?
And the other thing is, I'm not. This is not me defending Chris Anderson at all. But as soon as Chris Anderson puts his head above the parapet on Twitter, all he'll get is abuse. There's no point there's no point tweeting him because he's not going to respond. B, he can't respond within 130 characters and answer the questions that we need answering about this football club, such as what direction you're taking it in. It's almost like it's a good way to vent, but actually getting anything decent out of the guy is pointless. He needs to answer questions to someone like Clive in an actual interview where he can explain, or at least he can be questioned on what he's doing. Because as soon as he goes on Twitter, all he'll do, he'll write, he'll write response to anything the first 15 responses will just be someone calling him a cunt. And be like, well, that's going to make you feel better because you've called him that. But in actual answering any questions about this football club, it has to be done through something like Clive. So on Twitter, it's just block him, just ignore him. It's basically, there's no point in being on Twitter. He's not going to respond to you. It's, as Joey says, it's howling at the moon. It's just, don't bother. It needs to be done through someone like Clive. But he should, categorically, go on CWR at the earliest opportunity and explain what has been a fiasco of a transfer window. And if he comes out and go, we've gave Mowbray the budget and he hasn't spent it, that's one interpretation I'm sure he could come up with. Or B, basically come out and tell the truth. The money we got from Madison has gone plough back into the club, and therefore Sisu haven't made any money available. They're running on a shoestring. We've got no ambition for this football club. We just don't wait until something happens, which is what it feels like. We get these tweets all the time, like when that's what people want to discuss. What do we see as the future for the football club? There is no future for the football club. There hasn't been a future for the football club once, and I say this time and time again. At the end of the day this football club became unsellable was the day the Rico was sold to Wasps. Yep. Because up to that point, there was some tangible reason to own the football club. At this moment in time, and me and CJ discussed this at the last home game, the only thing the football club has is a plot of land at Brighton which no one can build anything on, so it might as well remain with the football club. That's all the football club has.
Yeah, it's
while they
still
had the chance of the Rico, there was something someone somewhere would want to buy. But there isn't. There's nothing worth buying. There's a shit League One football club which is worth fuck all to no one.
And I think this is exactly where... So this is the problem. With a conversation like this, this is particularly acute because I've been accused of it too often recently. We could either do a 20-hour podcast where we talked about all of the complexities and ins and outs and everything, but that people will hear you say that the Wasp sale was the biggest contributory factor to making us unsellable, and people will immediately say, I can't believe that you're saying it's the council when Sisu have fucked up so much. But what you're not saying there is that Sisu have had no impact in that. It's just a small soundbite because it's a bit of truth. The whole full thing of it is it took Sisu, or whoever the fuck you want to call them, to contribute massively to the fucking malaise and the downfall of the club in the first place so that it even became an issue. It took the council to do their bit. It took the Higgs to do their bit. Everyone had to fucking play a part. But I'm a little bit fucking tired of getting accused of being a pro-Sisu fucking person just recently. I don't know about yous.
The last week I've been called a scab.
Yeah, it goes the full list.
A so-called fan and something else. Oh, if you're a Coventry fan at all or something. And it's just like, I can't, if I could remove, if I had the money and could get it past my wife, I'd buy the football club. But not even I'm that stupid to own that football club. There's fuck all there. It's basically the soul of a football club. It's Voldemort before it gets to the body. There's fuck all. And the thing is, it's like, Sisu, there's no doubt that Sisu, they played their hand badly at every turn. Because the first thing they should have done was buy the ground. When they came in, when they had all the goodwill, when Joe Elliott told the fans to give them the shares, the first thing they should have done is walk into the council and go, here's £13 million for the Rico. And the council would have gone, okay. That should have been the first thing they did. And Ray Ranson came out and said, no, the important thing isn't the ground. And it's like, the long term of any company is like basically what the company is. And the company should have been the football club plus the ground. Sisu would have sold. Someone would have bought Sisu out by now if they owned the ground. Because someone would have gone, that ground can make me money. Basically, someone would have done what Wasps did and went, that ground can make me money. And that's basically Wasps using the ground to make them money. But all these people deluded and think, Wasps aren't going to buy us. What? There's nothing in there for Wasps to own Coventry. It's another loss-making business. The amount of money they have to plough in to get us into the Championship, when they've already got the Rico, which is loss-making, and Wasps, which is loss-making. It's just like...
I'm not sure that's entirely true. I don't think you need to plough loads of money to get us into the Championship. But I agree with
Right.
everything else you've just said.
Yeah, I agree with that possibly, but that actually I would have thought the only thing that they could use us for is either some sort of mad investment opportunity, which is bollocks, or to try and put a bullet in us. But they've already put the bullet in us. They don't need to take us on to sort of get rid of us. It's already happening. Anyway, like I say, I think we could do a really, I mean, we talk far too long anyway. We could do a very boring 20-hour podcast that went through all of the ins and outs and everything, but that we're not going to. We're going to talk in sound bites so that we can get this out in a reasonable time, which is actually still too long. Let me try and flick through the Fleetwood game, because actually, more than anything, it was just diabolically boring. I want to kind of talk about, and I'm not like this, I'd like to try and be reasonably balanced, but I'm actually going to fucking stick the boot in for a little bit here. I'm going to go through player by player and sort of, and maybe not touch on all of them. But
No, touch on all of them. I'm leaning back. I'm getting ready for this.
No, I want what's it. We're already pushing for time, so I want to kind of go through. Reece Charles Cook, second goal. I'm not even saying any more than that. Just take a look at yourself. And as well, sorry, this is straight away I'm going to fucking backtrack on myself. I don't mean this on any sort of personal level or anything like that. He seems like a lovely chap, and that he's been a really good player for us over the last year or so. But that's a fucking weak effort on that second goal. He'd probably be the first to admit it. It's just not good enough. Then, here we go. Kean Harris, I have literally never seen a defender spray 50, 60-yard passes like that in my entire life. I would imagine that he was into double figures of borderline breathtaking passes. He was also into double figures, and I'm so sorry, Kean Harris, if this ever gets back to you for some mad reason that you're listening or something. He also was in massive double figures of people just breezing past him.
For pace or strength or
just from not maybe like. Just like basic position. Have you seen the first goal?
I was going to ask, why was he so? I mean, that defensive line was like there were two players, and then there was their player and our player, 20 yards behind. And why was that? And
we'll get to you, Jordan Turnbull, for this first goal. But I didn't understand the line of his run or anything. It was an odd line for him to draw to try and block the player, but it was when the player was in the box and how easy it was for it to get past him. It looked like he'd either just been dying a death, injury or tiredness-wise, but he just, as soon as the guy cut back inside onto his left, it was just, Harry's kind of like just walked away from him. It was just obscene. But to top it off was Jordan Turnbull again, who got the option to go in once he realised that Harry, again, just kind of let him breeze past, and you just think, you're playing Fleetwood.
This ain't defending, is it? It's not defending.
It looked like Presley defending. It looked like Danny Seaborn. Like, watch a player drift past. It really was abysmal. But I can't help but look at the entire thing and go, if you had a left back there, you might be talking about a different situation. Because it's that ball goes, and it's actually, I don't know how many times you've watched it. I've watched it quite a few times because I'm singing all by myself and drinking a glass of wine on my own. That pass is wicked. That pass is really, really good into him. But it's the sort of pass that you'd play into a load of space where you hadn't got a fullback because your wing-back's pushed on and they don't really know where they're supposed to be. And I'm actually not having a go at Lewis Page, who was, amongst all of them, just as bad as everyone else. I am conscious that, actually, since my massive Lewis Page rant, he's had two reasonable-ish games. Reasonable in the sense that against Northampton I thought he was okay. And then on Saturday, he was no worse than anyone else. Actually, he kind of was, on the sort of, 5 out of 10 compared to some of the 3s and 4s that you dish out.
Can I throw in a caveat against the Northampton game?
Do it.
They didn't really have a right winger who sort of they didn't appear to have anyone who was trying to go forward on the right wing.
No, you're absolutely right, but his attitude wasn't vile.
It was a bit like John Stones proved all the England doubters wrong yesterday. Well, Slovenia didn't try to attack. Yeah. So, if he had a good game because basically what he had to do was carry the ball forward.
Then Jordan Willis continued his trend of being Jordan Willis this season. Again, I made mistakes, occasionally recovered for them. His captain
Never.
Well, and we've talked about captains quite a lot over the last 4.5 years or whatever, and usually our conclusion has been it's a bit bollocks. But it does give you a little bit of a glimpse into the sort of state of the squad. And again, I'm not having a go on a personal level. He might be really inspirational and he's a cov lad and all that sort of stuff. This is no personal slight on any of the players. But that if you envisaged a wicked team, is Jordan Willis the captain?
So I think everyone in here is quite a big fan of Sideways Sammy.
Yeah.
And he did a review of Jordan Willis, and he did. I don't want to. I'm reading it now. I'm not sure if he said exceptional defender.
This is classic radio.
Yeah, this is classic radio. But I have seen the word exceptional put next to Jordan Willis's name this season, and it's like I like the fact he's very quick. Because his pace is really beneficial to, it makes him a better defender than I think he is. I think if he was slow, if he was a cart horse, he'd be bombed out by now. Because
that's all he's got going for him, isn't he?
He makes so many sloppy errors, and it's like I know the Norwich game was a bit, but he makes that sort of error with the ball at his feet quite a lot. It's just against Norwich, he had someone he couldn't chase down. But he had a similar one against Bradford, and he was just quick enough to get back. His actual positioning, and I think it's because he's been moved from right back to centre half and playing right hand side of a back three is a very difficult role. But he really needs an experienced head alongside him to basically just go, look, you stand there, you do this. He shouldn't, captain or not, he shouldn't be one of the leaders of that back three.
There's the rub. Yeah,
because he's only played 75 games. I know he's 22, but he's still only played 75 games. We talk about this a lot. Me and Joey, this big reference for us is the Kenny Cunningham, Matthew Upson thing. You just need someone stood there just going, stand, don't be a twat.
There,
kick, don't be a twat. And it's like, our defence would be 10 times better if we had someone 28, 29 who was used to this division, who was used to the long ball and used to just basically barking at centre. And it doesn't help the fact the keeper's also a kid. Because it's like, well, Reece Charles Cook hasn't got the experience to come out and bark at anyone either. There needs to be someone within that back four unit who's a proper, don't fuck with me type player, and we don't have them.
Moving forward throughout the team, Chris McCann came off after 38 minutes, I think. He wasn't quite bad enough to warrant being subbed off Mourinho style before the first half, but I don't think he was far off. It just, he's unfortunate that we have been told that he is a player that Wigan would have taken to the Championship, because we have assessed him against those standards, and I'm not seeing yet. Then he might yet reach that peak. I just don't see it so far. I'm still not convinced I understand not that you have to have a type, but that I can't see what bit of a midfielder he is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel the same about him and Gadzev. I think they're both kind of just there. At the moment, they're just there. I don't think they're poor, like really noticeably poor, but they're not a midfield. Last year we were winning the midfield.
Yeah.
Whether it was just through quality or just raw beardness, it was kind of we were winning it. But this year they're not on it at all at the moment.
Gadzev, the best that I've seen him was the opening 15 minutes against Bradford, where he was playing as a number 10 behind the Reed and Aguiar, and that he'd got Stevenson and McCann pushed up high behind him. And I think I'm a big acolyte of your midfields playing really, really high, even if your defence isn't. I just want to see real hard thrust put up against defences in League One, because they're so inept most of the time. And I think that's when teams look good. And then we dropped off afterwards. On Saturday, it's the worst I've seen him. He floated through the game with no impetus. He's like that, like John Fleck in The Poor Team bad, where you're like, there probably is a version of you that's all right, but you can't play in a team this bad. And by proxy, that makes you bad. We need you to be Like Winslow came into what was a shit team that season and just lifted them. Because that was, and we're going to bang on about him this season, like we banged on about O'Brien last season, I'm sure. But it basically means that you're not up to it, as far as I'm concerned.
Can either of you two remember the McAllister season or season and a half when he came back from playing for Liverpool? And basically, it just meant we had to play through McAllister. And what McAllister did was McAllister played at McAllister's pace, which was about the same pace as an asthmatic turtle. And it looked fine when we were playing well and we were winning, because it just meant he never gave the ball away. And you're like, that's fine, because there's players alongside him who are moving the ball quickly. And the fact it goes to McAllister and he slows it down, it's quite good for us at the moment, because we've got Richie Partridge tearing them a new one. And then the second half season, when we couldn't win, every time it went to McAllister, it was like, oh, fucking hell, the tempo's gone. And I find that with Gadjev, the ball goes to him and it's like, I know he's going to pick another Cov player out. I know his pass completion rate is going to be about 98%. My problem is it's going to be about a minute too slow. He's going to take 10 touches. He's going to try and play it with the outside of his right foot, and he's going to slow down the attack. And every time I've seen him, it's gone, yeah, it's exactly what he's done. And you remember Oldham away last season, where when he came on, he sort of made us look better. But he made us look better by the fact that Ruben Ramirez was trying to do stuff and it just wasn't working. Well, Gadjev came on and just passed the ball to a teammate. And it worked against Oldham because we were so on top and Oldham was so shit. But against other teams who are trying to win a game, it just makes us look even more ponderous, and it doesn't help our laborious front three.
I'm going to try and finish this off, because I've got a few more minutes of sort of final thoughts on this. Bigger Romana was the closest any player came out of it to coming out of it with some credit. There was a tenacity about his play in the second half. A number of people that I saw on Twitter said that they felt that he'd had a really good game in the first half. I didn't think so at all. I did feel like he came out and, as best as he could, tried to give it some at least. And I don't think it really worked for him. But actually, in a team so devoid of thrust and meaning, he did at least try to provide some engine. And I hate hearing myself talking about this, because I keep going back to players like Jim O'Brien and Triers and everything. And I must sound like such a fucking small-minded, like all I want to see is just people giving their all for the cause and everything. But that's not the case. That's not what I mean at all. But there are points at which teams are so awful that you need to grab a game by the scruff of the neck. And that's what I loved about Jim O'Brien, was that Jim O'Brien had a sense of leadership about him, where he set the tempo and he set the pace for other players to get on it. And that people sort of said that he was a bad influence or blah, 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 blah. But you could see how the team reacted to him getting players up. And I do think there's a phenomenal amount to be said for that level of either leadership or setting an example, and just getting in teams' faces sometimes. Just gets the team going and gets players going. And I think Bigger Romana tried, but he hasn't got that same urgency, or maybe that same vileness that Jim O'Brien has got. And I don't want an 11 players doing that, but I think you need to have that element about you, especially in League One, where it is a bit sort of cut and thrust and a bit more utilitarian. I just think you could do with a little bit of that.
I think we've got a group of lovely lads again, haven't we?
A little bit.
Lovely set of lads.
Yeah. So, the final two things, I'm going to take the strikers, and then I want to talk about the overall play for just a minute. So the first thing I would say is you've got Daniel Agyei, who I want to particularly highlight two moments of play in the game. One is the moment where, I don't know, have you seen the highlights? I think I've asked you this about 10 times. Right. In the highlights, if you go on YouTube and have a look at them, there's a moment where the ball gets played into him and he has two players in front of him. And you can see straight away that he knows what he's going to do. And he does sell the players. He plays the ball behind his own legs and he creates a little bit of space for himself. And in the end, his shot is weak. But that you can see that he's got the flickering behind the eyes of having an idea of a little bit of something different and a bit of quality. I don't know how much yet. I was impressed with him against Bradford, but there I think is something there. The problem is, on the flip side of that, is earlier in the highlights package, there is a moment where the ball comes to him inside the box on the left-hand side, and he takes one touch that puts him in a worse position than he needed to be, and it's not a difficult one to hit first time. And there is something there, I would suggest, that is the complete antithesis of Adam Armstrong in his first game pointing to the penalty spot as he runs into it to say, this is where I want the ball because I want to bang it and I want to score. And that I don't expect every player to be Adam Armstrong, but there is something about that mentality where you need someone to shake him and hypnotise him and say, you just believe in yourself, hit it, take the shot. It don't matter if you miss. It doesn't matter whether you screw it miles wide or anything. Let's see you just believe in yourself and give it a go. And that there's a little bit too much for me of a look of being a bit scared. And I don't want that to come off as being cruel or whatever. It's just just an observation.
It sounds about right.
It's just an observation. That said, on the other side of that striking duo, Marvin Sordell stepped forward. Bad. Bad.
Where was he the point of the strikers? Was he?
No, it was much more. It was similar-ish to Bradford in the way that they set up, except Gadjev was deeper. So it was two strikers.
Right.
Oh my god!
But a lot of people on Twitter said they were playing sort of on the wing. They were nowhere near each other.
But it was the sort of... So, in the same way that Agyei and Reid hit the wings, especially out of possession against Bradford, they occupied a lot of area in the way that two strikers who are death scared of scoring goals would do. But I get that, I get that maybe both of them like running the channels, but that at some point one of you is going to have to get near the box occasionally. But I don't even think it's that. But Agyei wasn't good, but there's something there that I quite like, and it feels like there's someone that could kickstart him. Marvin Sordell did not have a good game. It was just I think I might have mentioned it earlier. There was one shot that he took in the second half that might have been pretty much our only shot of the half. It was a little bit sad watching it.
Did they make the highlights?
No, and I'm sure he's watched it back and thanked his lucky stars that it didn't. He hits it on the half volley and it just screws so high and wide that you just think, oh God, what's happening? It was a particularly strong or poor low light of that half. Right, give me 30 seconds of final bit and then I'll wrap up and I'll take any final questions. Pre-game or post-game, Mowbray talked about Guardiola. And this, to me, is the absolute fucking red flag. And I know we touched on it briefly earlier, but this, to me, is absolutely terrifying when it comes to League One managers. They are absolutely right. There is a way of playing football in which you can keep the ball, which nullifies the opportunity for the opposition to make chances. It tires them out. You have the best chance of winning if you have the ball. And Barcelona do that by having Xavi, Iniesta, Rakitic, and all the players that they've had over the last 10 years or so that have allowed them to do that. It's not an easy thing to do. And as much as it says it tires out the opposition, it's mentally and physically taxing, and it requires the highest level of technical skill you can possibly imagine. The idea that you want to replicate that in League One with a budget that has either been slashed or you've had to bring in shite players as a result is absolutely mental as far as I'm concerned. Not only that, but you also haven't recruited for an 11 that is able to do it.
That's the crux, isn't it?
If you're
going to do it, bring it like last year's team. You could kind of forgive him. That, okay, yeah, you've got some really technical players. It makes sense for you to want to replicate that out at sort of a watered down level. This year, you have not got players who can do that at all in any sense. So don't even talk about it.
Outside of maybe Gadjev, the player in the squad who is most adept at doing it is Ruben Lemiras, who effectively, no matter what he does, doesn't get a look in. And if you want to play that possession football, then you can't, I would suggest, play 3-4-3 particularly. You need a more settled formation that the players understand better, and you need more players that are sort of deeper lying. Because one, in your 3-4-3, you've got constant confusion because you change it every week about the makeup of your top three. You haven't got enough midfielders to offer options, and you don't allow Kean Harris the freedom to step up far enough to start making a difference, because all of his beautiful 60-yard passes were played to feet to players who haven't got any technical ability, but they have got pace and maybe a little bit of power. So they want balls in front of them. I never want to see Kyle Reid, and I know he wasn't there, particularly on Saturday. I mean, he didn't start on Saturday. But I don't want players like Kyle Reid getting the ball to feet. I want to see him chasing it down. I want to see him chasing it down and putting the first ball in or taking a shot straight off. These are not highly technical players capable of passing teams to death. You've signed pacey players because you've realised that was what was successful for you last season, but I'm not quite sure that you understand why it was successful for you last season. Does that make sense?
Yeah, basically, I did have 2 points, and I've completely. One of the points is if you're going to play a possession-based game of football, you really need to dominate the central midfield, which technically means normally you need to have 3 players in there.
Yeah.
So I sort of understand playing the 3-5-2, apart from the fact that it isolates your wing backs and you get fucked over that way, like we did against Bradford. The other thing is, it's just I don't like managers who come out and unless you really are dealing with like the best players in the world, who come out and go, I've got a style of play, we're going to do this. It's like, that's fine, but at the end of the day, football isn't that controllable, especially not in League One, where you don't know what the players are going to do at any given second. You've got to be able to alter, and it's just like Mowbray talked about last season when we played Burton, we were 1-0 down. He goes, we don't have a plan B. And it's like, you've got to Christmas and you don't have a plan B. What have you been doing on the training pitch? It's like, surely you have this scenario. You have that plan B. And after the Bradford game, oh, maybe we need to work on playing with 10 men. It's like, well, Arsene Wenger's been doing that for like 10 years. Going, oh yeah, Arsenal, we train, a couple of times a week with 10 men with different things, different scenarios, because that's the way it works. And it just, I don't know. I think the thing that baffles me is the fact that people aren't prepared to just look at it at the moment and go, yeah, the off-field stuff is as it is, but is 3-4-3 really the formation that we should be playing at this moment in time? Is it the system that best utilises the players we've got? And I don't think it is. I think you're making defence, especially if teams play 3 up front, it's one-on-one battles, just trusting your defence so much not to fuck up. And as you say, both goals. How many goals have we conceded over the years which have been defensive fuck-ups? And basically you're putting that down to, I'm not giving them any protection in midfield. And the thing like the Northampton game, it's like your midfield has been taken out because one of your midfielders made a crap pass and there's 30 yards of space behind him. It's just, I don't know, I think what worries me looking at those stats is the Mowbray stats we talked about earlier, is basically after now, Presley only lasted another 28 games. And in those 28 games, I think he only won 5 more games. Like, after this point, if you're doing a graph, it basically just is a downward spiral into, I'm about to be sacked, Phil.
It's just a lightning bolt that strikes him directly on the head.
And you like that with Mowbray. It's like, there was only so much grace you're going to get from talking about, we played Saturday, Tuesday. And it's like, Mowbray, Ross only got the job at Fleetwood like 2 weeks before the start of the season. They're third. I know what you're saying, that they were shit. I had a tweet conversation with someone else, and he said, well, defensively they look organised-ish. And it's like, well, if you can be defensively organised, then you don't concede 2 shit goals. And all this, I haven't had the players to work with. Well, you've had Kelly Evans, Haynes, Ricketts, Harris and Willis all summer. So you could have started with those 5 week in, week out, because those are the 5 you've had all summer. You didn't have to change any of those, and that could have given you a solid back 5. But you've dropped your wing backs as soon as you possibly could with players who have never played that system before. Of course they're going to look out of fucking place. They're playing a new system. It's not, people playing right back, wing back. It's a completely different thing because you're the winger as well. Hence the term. You've got to gamble on going forward. Your position is so key because if you're out of position, there's a massive gap behind you which teams can hit. And it's just like you didn't have to change those 2 players. You chose to. You've chosen to play Kyle Reid as your first choice for 5 games and then drop him altogether. Ruben Ramirez came in, it was only against the under-23s. He scored and set up a goal, yet he doesn't even get on when you're chasing the game the next time. You brought Andre Wright on. So Ruben Ramirez must be just thinking, going, "Oh, so I'm only here for the under 23 games." It's like, well, what? It's just like these are ongoing issues. These are not new issues. In this year, this calendar year, we've played 28 games and picked up 28 points. It's like, that doesn't look good reading. We've got to accept the fact that at this moment in time, as Neil said earlier, the whole club is failing, and that includes the manager, the players, and the board.
What apart from that? That was a rhetorical question. I think
we've done 1 hour 20.
Oh,
Can I just put on record, just very quickly before this becomes completely moot? I actually am quite a big advocate of keeping the ball, but in the right sense, like value in possession. So actually keeping the ball in a way where it's actually meaningful. So you've always talked in the past about sort of sterile possession where you're not doing anything with it. I think there is a lot of value, and any team can keep the football, but the point of that is making it meaningful. Actually doing something with it and being sort of progressive with it, and I think that's where we always create this illusion of keeping the ball where it's just passing along the back, and there's no actual sort of meaning behind it, and that's kind of the difference. Just had to put that on record because that's how I feel.
No, and I completely agree with you. So what I would say to that, and then I'll make it 30 seconds, and then Paul, you can take it, and then we'll move on, is that crucially, the teams that do that, the pass to death teams, they have that one killer instinct where they're just waiting for a chink in the armour to come out, and then they hit hard and fast and effectively. And it's one chance, they just wait, they keep nudging things along, and then they hit hard. And that's what I think is phenomenally difficult to do. I love the idea of keeping possession. I wonder whether we, or most League One teams, have got the ability to do it. Paul?
Two things. One thing, the other thing that Pep Guardiola really focuses on is winning the ball back high up the pitch, which we don't do. Second thing, other things that really piss me off, I fucking loathe our home shirt. I know, it's fucking white. It's white.
It's white.
With the sky blues, it's white.
Yeah.
But the ensemble is lovely if you buy the shorts and socks, but who the fuck is going to do that?
Yeah, I'm not walking around Sale Town Centre wearing shorts and socks. People look at me odd anyway, wearing a cough top. They're going to look at me really fucking strange when I'm walking around with shin pads as well. The home shirt is a fucking abomination, and whoever agreed that should be sacked. Because it's just not. Well, no other club would be that. What colour are you? Well, with the sky blues. Oh, okay, here's this white shirt. Oh, okay, thanks. Imagine Liverpool wearing a shirt that was mainly white. Their fans would be fucking up in arms. It's horrendous. When they're facing away from us, you're like, which team are we supporting again? One wearing white, or the one wearing like Dayglow green, as fucking Northampton were. It's like, this is shit.
My problem is actually with the ampersand on the front, which looks terrible.
Yeah, it's Bush League, isn't it? Yeah.
Why would you? I just wouldn't have them in. I'd sack those off as well, just for the sake that you got a crap logo. We're not having you.
I think that's that issue subsequently sufficiently tackled. Yeah. Right, we've got Millwall on Saturday. Oh, I'm going to forget this otherwise. Actually, so I'm going to drop this in quickly. It's the Football Blogging Awards again. So we're going to do the Twitter stuff, and we might try and work out the Facebook stuff. And I think there's a way of voting for us online. Yeah. If you want to, and you're on Twitter, we are at Neil Lamptey Show. We're going to pin the tweet to our profile. You need to click on the link in the tweet, which we've created for you, and it generates a tweet. You then hit tweet, and then it takes about 3 seconds, and it's done. I think there might be other ways of doing it, but we'll try and put them out on all the different channels. It means a lot to us. We do this for free, and we have to pay to go to the thing. But it's the one bit of, what would you call it?
Recognition.
Enjoyment.
Yeah, that we get out of either being Cov fans or doing this. So you've been fantastic over the last few years. We've been to the last 2.
Yeah.
And we've only ever ended up facing Liverpool and Arsenal and whoever else. And it's amazingly, we're very proud to get there, and we really, really, really appreciate you doing it. So if you can take 3 seconds out your day, sorry, that sounds a bit passive aggressive, but you just take some time.
You must vote for us.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, fill your boots. I'm going to be very quick because we're running way over time. Millwall are 4th in the league. They've won 3, drawn 2, and lost 1 out of their 6 games so far. They have got Steve Morrison up front, who scored 5 goals, which I would have thought is near as damn it to top scorer in the league, but I'm not prepared to look that up. They've got Shane Ferguson, who is the winger that Joe Kinnear tried to sign despite him being at the club that he was managing at the time.
Yes.
When he was Newcastle manager, he went and saw him play for Birmingham, didn't realise that he was on loan from Newcastle. It's a smashing story. And I mean, they've got a whole bunch of other things, forwards and defenders and stuff like that. But just go on the internet and have a look. And have a look as usual at Sideways Sammy. He'll be doing a preview and he'll actually know what he's talking about. But
I must throw in a correction. Sideways Sammy basically just said he's nothing outstanding, and he was slightly surprised he was linked with a championship move. So it wasn't him who wrote the word exceptional. Someone did. Someone has written. Jordan Willis was exceptional, and he clearly isn't.
Wasn't that Telegraph?
It might have, but Sideways Sammy, having now read it through, appears to have very much the same opinion that we do, except he didn't mention the word pace 15 times. Yeah, so I'm really sorry, Dominic. I apologise, and I will. If I was in charge of a newspaper, I'd make a very small correction on page 50. Yeah.
Okay. Right, we're wrapping up then. Has anyone got anything else they want to say?
I'll take you back to 1989. All right, 1989, the 9th of September 1989, Coventry City were going to the Den, and we were top of the table in the Championship as was, and we went to Millwall on my 10th birthday and got fucking hammered 4-1 or 4-0 with Ollie getting sent off and David Speedy going in goal. And this Friday is my 37th birthday, and we're going to play Millwall, and we're second bottom in League One. So for all those people out there who think that I enjoy this, in 27 years, the team I love has gone from being top of the Championship, or top of the top flight of English football, to second bottom of League One. That's why I have a tendency to rant.
No one thinks you enjoy this.
Right, so also anyone who thinks out there I'm CC sympathiser, that's what they've done to my club as well as your club. Yeah. You know, it's like we're all in this. We all have to sort of grin and bear the fact that we're fucking shite in League One, and none of us are happy about it.
Yeah, and to those of you that are willing to sell the club to literally anyone, look at what happened the last time we did that. Right, guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Cheers, mate.
And thank you for listening. Don't forget to vote for us in the Football Blogging Awards. Thank you, bye!